Thanks, Meta. And as always, I'm at a new computer, and so if things don't go exactly, I have all sorts of people here to rescue me. So I am Dawn Larsen. I'm the Director of Projects for WASPC, the Washington Coalition. There we go. For WASPC, the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. Jaime Yoder is also here with me. She'll type in periodically if she has questions and explanations. Jaime has been with WASPC for 10 years. She is moving into my position as I will be retiring the end of May. So if you have, and again, as Meta said, we have plenty of time for this webinar today. Please feel free to ask any and all questions. If questions come up or you think about other things that you have questions of, at the end of this presentation we will have contact information and you may just email us directly. So, and I know that many of you have been to the trainings that we have done around the state where we've talked about SAVIN, the Statewide Automated Victim Information and Notification Program. It is also called VINE, Victim Information Notification Every Day. I think that for those of you that don't know, they are exactly the same program. In Missouri, it's called MOVAN. Louisiana, it's called LAVIN. It's in 47 states across the nation. It's a public website, and it's the website where you are able to get information about custody status and change in custody status for offenders who are in jails or in prison. We'll talk just briefly more about it because there's some things that are very similar, but there's some important differences, and so I want to be able to highlight those differences as we go also. Just to let you know, the reason for these confusing names is that VINE was created in 1994 in Louisville, Kentucky by a young company called Apparis. It was actually two young computer geeks. It was as big as that company was at the time. And they called it VINE, and it's a copyrighted product. And they started marketing it across the nation. It's a very cool program. The federal government, the Department of Justice, heard about it and said, we really need to make funding available to states to implement this program. So they, in 2001, started making federal dollars available to implement. However, the federal government will not endorse a copyrighted product, and so if you got federal dollars, you couldn't use the name VINE. You will still see VINE everywhere. The website is VINE Link, for example, but you'll also see it as SAVIN. The SAVIN PO is really just the Statewide Automated Victim Information and Notification Protective Order Program. In many ways, it works the same. And as I said, there are some differences. So you'll see it as SAVIN PO. You'll see it as VPO. It is just the same name. It is a much smaller program. It's in about 8 states. It is difficult and complicated to run in some ways. It can do a lot more than it does in this state. It's very narrow in this state, but it is also, as I said, more difficult to implement. In Washington State, as many of you know, we have a variety of protective orders, which makes it even more complicated. I don't know, we have 7 or 8 different kinds of protective orders. And when I've talked to other states about it, they're all fairly horrified, to tell you the truth, because I haven't found a state yet with more than 2. So it does make it more difficult. So let me go back to SAVIN, which is the custody status notification piece, for just a minute. Again, just to review what it can do so you can compare it to the protective order. So it's a 24/7, it is free, it's anonymous. There is no way for an offender to know that someone is registered to receive information about his or her custody status. There is no way for information. The only information that's provided is provided by the person who is registering is the telephone number and the PIN number that they determine. That information is pulled from the jail or the booking computer every 15 minutes. So there's no more than 16 minutes delay from the time someone is released or transferred. Well, transfer is a little different, and I'm not going to go into that today, but basically anything, if the offender is released, the person who's registered will get that information within 15 to 16 minutes after it happens. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sort of depends on the timing. It is a public website. Anyone has access to it. All you need to do is you can go in, you find the offender's name, you go state by state, you can just look to see if they're still in custody, and that may be as much as you need to do. If you do want to register to receive notification, you can do it by phone or you can do it by email. And you enter, as I said, your telephone number and a PIN number. That PIN number is really important because it's what tells the system you got the message. If you forget it, then it's going to call you back. And we'll talk about that more in just a minute. We okay? All right. Metta's coming in here and trying to mess me up. So hold on just a second while she does something. The SAVIN Protective Order program, as I said, works the same way in that the data is pulled from a database and goes to the servers in Louisville, Kentucky, and notification goes out by phone or by email. The primary differences are this. First of all, the State Patrol keeps that database and they enter the data in once an hour. So that information is only pulled once an hour instead of every 15 minutes. Also, and we'll talk more about this, it is not necessarily immediate information. There's a delay in the time it takes maybe to get the orders into the database and the time it takes to get the service information into the database. So we'll talk about that more in just a minute. So the two kinds of things that the Washington Protective Order Notification Program can do is, first of all, to let you know that the protective order has been served. And we are talking about all 7 different kinds of protective orders. This is a generic term, not just the protection order that we call the DV protection order or the SA protection order. The system will also give 90-day notice that the order, the permanent order, is about to expire. We had a little confusion recently where a 90-day notice went out on a temporary order, and you can imagine that didn't go well, seeing how they expire after 2 weeks. So what happened is that the person who was registered got the notice that the order had been served. Then a few minutes later, she got another phone call, so thought she hadn't entered her PIN number right, but it really was the second notice about the 90-day expiration notice. So we have fixed that so the temporary orders do not get an expiration notice, but all of the permanent orders will. Okay.
Sometimes it takes it a second.
Sometimes just wait patiently. We're waiting for the next slide here. There we go. All right, so there's a couple of ways to find information on both of these programs, and we're going to take you to that website in just a minute. But I want to walk through some of these links for you. So the www.vinelink.com is really the primary one to remember. And for Washington, you can click on VineLink and you will have both a tab that will take you to custody status, but also a tab that will take you to protective orders. Now I need to put a little qualifier in here. We'll talk about this, so you'll see this in a minute, but in Washington State, every county and city jail and DOC are on what's called the statewide SAVIN program, except for King County Jail. King County Jail purchased VINE actually for their domestic violence program in 1999. The statewide system didn't come into play when we received federal dollars in 2006. So King County Jail still hosts its own program. If you go directly to the King County website on VineLink, it does not have the link to the protective order. But if you go to the statewide, you will find that link, and it does cover King County. So I know that's a little bit confusing, but just know you can get to anything on the VineLink page. So you can register both for custody status there, and you can register for the protective order. The protective order program actually has its own website also, which is this registervpo.com. When you go to VineLink and you click on protective order, it's going to pop you right to this Register VPO. But I think it's always good just to have one protective order or one website to remember, not whole bunches. Here is the website. We're going to screenshot. Here's the actual website itself. All of the blue states, by the way, basically have a one-stop shop. If you go click on that particular state, you're going to get every participating facility in that area, and you can check out. If you go to Arizona, for example, they have about 90% of their offenders, but they really are in 2 police departments. So those are the yellow states. There are 3 programs here. So just know that there is an offender. Once the offender is released from custody, all of the information is purged after 14 days. So there's no historical data in there. The important thing to know about this program is if you register for somebody in Thurston County and they are released and a month later they're booked in Cowlitz County, you're going to have to re-register for that person. If there's a message from Wahkiakum, then you need to register in Spokane to find out what happens after that. So it's not tracked beyond the one primary message. We're going to go into Washington. Again, you can see there's Washington's going to have to click on both of them. The jails, except for 2 little holding jails, Aberdeen and Hoquiam, they're the last 2 we need to add to this program. They will be added sometime in the next few months, actually. They're in process as we speak. The last county was San Juan County. They came in just this past January. Some other counties have been on since 2006. Pierce and King County have been on since 1999. DOC joined the program in 2010, so you can also register to receive information from DOC. Find the Department of Corrections Victim Service programs and also register with them. They can do more than the SAVIN program can, and specifically the thing that they can do more is give 30 to 35 days notice to victims when an offender is about to be released from prison. So they do some pre-release safety planning. I'm not going to walk you all the way through how to do a search. This is the search page. You add the offender's last name. I'll show you that. Again, you can see you enter the case number, you enter the respondent's first and last name and the county in which it was issued. Once you have that, you hit the search button and it will tell you the status of that particular protective order. It's very important, by the way, that when you enter the respondent's first and last name, that you use the name exactly as it is on the protective order. If somebody goes by their middle name, for example, and you know them by the middle name, and you put in their middle and last name, but the protective order has their official first name and last name, it is not going to match and it's not going to find it. We are working with APRIS to take these 2 boxes out so that at some point all you need is the case number and the county in which it was issued. That makes sense to us because they are unique numbers. It makes sense to APRIS, but they are also checking with the other 8 participating states on this program. So that hopefully that will come to be. I have to back. Wait, back up. I need to get out of this and back. Can I get back to? Wait, I've got Jaime who's going to say about how this program works for you. You can click on here. If you need to get to us, you can click right down there in the bottom. Over on this side, for whatever reason, they're changing their server or upgrading their booking system, or the power's out, it's going to show you which agencies are down, and so you can't register until they come back up. This looks like a lot right now, but Yakima County, Wapato, Toppenish, Sunnyside, and Grandview are all on exactly the same booking system. So if it goes down, it affects multiple jails. So that's why, and to get those things fixed. The final thing I want to show you on this page is register user. Click here to change your registration and PIN. This is, again, particularly for the SAVIN program, but it is important with people who have throwaway phones. So they register their phone, rid of that phone. 3 months down the road, Jaime buys a phone and she gets that number, and if they haven't gone in here and changed their phone number and PIN, she's going to get to know the PIN number. The PIN number, when the message comes, it says, hello, this is so-and-so, this is Washington SAVIN, to let you know that Joe Blow has been released. Enter your PIN number followed by the pound sign, which tells the system that you got the message. If you don't enter that PIN number and you've forgotten it, we're going to give you 30 minutes to go remember it. We're going to call you back every 30 minutes for most of the day. We'll call you back every 2 hours through the night for 24 hours. After 24 hours, we assume it's a bad phone number and we turn it off. But you can see it's pretty serious about getting the message, and that PIN number is really important. Okay, on to the protective order. Back to the PowerPoint, Jaime. Okay, next page here. Let's get it. Oh, I have to wait. Sorry. Process in Washington. Many of you know this far better than I do, but I know where's a copy of that order to law enforcement, to the jurisdiction, to enter into the WSP, Washington State Patrol database. Most of them do it within a very short period of time of receiving that. The courts sometimes send it electronically. A few courts are now doing that. Sometimes they hand deliver it to law enforcement. Sometimes they fax it over. There's a variety of ways that it gets from the court to law enforcement. Law enforcement is charged to enter it into the Washington State Patrol database in a reasonable length of time. I'm not quite sure what that means, but historically no more than 3 days. Then the law enforcement go and serve that order. Now it may take 2 or 3 or 4 tries. If you go into the protective order system and you're checking on whether or not it's been served, you're going to see that. Sometimes you will see those tries in there, sometimes not. Then once it's served, law enforcement enters the service information into the State Patrol database. Again, this may or may not be in fairly real time. There are some law enforcement agencies that can enter it immediately from their computers in their cars. Some call the dispatch immediately and they enter the information in. In many cases, they take it back to the law enforcement station department agency at the end of the day, and the clerks enter it at the end of the day. You can see if it goes in late Friday afternoon, it probably is not going to get entered until Monday morning. The most important thing for advocates, I think, in this situation is to know what the practice is in your community, because it is different in every community. One community some years ago told me that they mailed it in. That was fairly horrifying to me. So I hope that you know how your agencies in your community operate, and advocate for faster notification into the system. The protective order notification system was created by APRIS to try to get to the statistic that first 24 hours after service is the most lethal hours on a protective order. So if we could get that information that it's been served right out, we could do safety planning around that. But because we don't have a handle on that time frame yet, or a way to make it faster, we just say be ready, but also know that you're just going to have to do other kinds of safety planning, and the most important thing is that you know it's been served. This information again is pulled right from the State Patrol database once an hour. It is the only database that is used, so the downtime is almost nothing. We did have one case in November where a petitioner went to court and told the judge that, yes, I received notification that my protective order has been served, and then we discovered it hadn't been served, and the error was created because the State Patrol has been diligently working at upgrading this system so that the data we get is more up-to-date and more complete. For example, one of the things they're still trying to fix is in their system, all orders are shown as being served at midnight. And so if you see an order, receive an order, it says it was served on March 31st at midnight. And so we know that that's not true. We're trying to fix that so you will get the actual time of service. Although the two systems work the same way, the way they pull the data and the way the data is entered, there's a couple of important differences that I want to talk about now. For one, we know protective orders are even more sensitive. It is not as public. You saw to register, you had to have the order number and the respondent's name and the county of issuance. If you don't have that information, you cannot get into the system. So you can't go in and say, I want to see every Johnson, or I want to see everything in Benton County, or whatever it is. You have to have that information to be able to even register. The service of order is not real time. It's going to be, you're going to get that notice within an hour to 3 days later. Okay. I was going to say something more about that, and I've just lost my sentence, so just a minute. The notifications are handled the same way. You can get them by phone, or again, you can register by email. And on the SAVIN program, you can get notices by phone or by email. Oh, one important thing I forgot already to tell you. On the SAVIN side, you can go online now. You can use the phone number. There's a phone number. You can call directly to get that information. Or you can now go to VIN Mobile. You can register on your phone. Okay, so that's a new program. Spread the word. It's growing incredibly fast, called the VIN Mobile. So back to protective orders. Sorry about that. And you can go into the system, and you can, just like you can with the custody status, you can go in and check every single hour on the hour if you want to see if it's been served. You can also register for notification that it has been served. You can get, again, that by phone, and or you can get an email. In the SAVIN program, you can get that phone message and that email message. You can ask for it to come in English, Spanish, Russian, Tagalog, Somali, Vietnamese, or one I just forgot, Russian. In the protective order system, it is English and Spanish are the two that we have right now. In the protective order system, you must have your PIN number to get the message. The other difference is for protective orders, the message says, hello, this is Washington SAVIN PO program. We have the information that you have requested. Enter your PIN number to get that information. So it's not going to give you the information if you don't have your 4-digit PIN. Again, that's one that you can do. One advocate recently I talked to is telling her folks to actually use the last 4 digits of their phone number as their PIN number. I think that's a really good way to remember that and to use that information. You can register as many phones as you want. On both programs, you can use the same PIN numbers. That doesn't matter, but you may want to do your home phone and your cell phone, your mother's phone. Doesn't matter. Okay? Email notifications obviously only go out once. So I see advocates usually asking for email notification. Otherwise, you will get the voice message for the SAVIN program, the release in custody. They often release people at 4 in the morning, so that phone call and remembering that PIN becomes even more problematic. I wanted to give you some information about this program. It is currently funded in this state by a federal grant called Grants to Encourage Arrest. There are several other programs in that. It's through the Department of Commerce here in the state. And we have a couple of tasks that we need to do with this grant. It's a 3-year grant. We have about 1.5 years left on this particular grant. And its focus was to grow the program. We have a long way to grow. There are about 50,000 protective orders in this state a year. So I'm showing you 2 months, 2014, 2015 for January and February. They're about the same number of orders, slightly different. Here's the total number of permanent orders for those 2 months, total number of sexual assault orders, total number of criminal no contact orders. But this is an interesting number to me. This was the number of people who went to the website and made hits on that website. You can see it's growing just hugely. In my mind, and I really need advocates to verify this with me as you talk to folks, it feels to me like if I have a protective order, that's a pretty emergent safety kind of issue that I'm not necessarily going to trust that I'm going to get a phone call that I'm going to want to go in every 2 hours to see if it's been served. So we're getting a lot of hits on that website. The number of registrations by grant, we said we'd increase it by 15%. We've done that pretty well, but you can see the number of registrations for notification is 100, and yet the number of orders for those 2 months is 8,000. So we have lots of room for growth. Here's the number of notifications through that period of time. Okay.
Dawn, we have a question.
Sure, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And if you would repeat it out loud for the group since I'm over here. The question was, can you register to be notified by phone and email?
Absolutely.
And would you repeat the question?
Okay, I'm sorry. I need to repeat the question. One of the questions was, can you register to be notified by phone and by email? And the answer to that is yes. You can actually click both boxes and it will give you on one page. You can just do both. Again, you can enter as many phone numbers and as many email addresses as you want. The phone numbers, you'll see a little box that's already pre-checked for you. And what that does is connect. So if you have 5 phones, for example, that you're registering with a PIN number, it's going to connect all those 5 phones so that when you enter your PIN number on one phone, it will turn off all of the other. In the early days, all 5 phones would call you, and you would have to answer all 5 phones. But now it's just all linked and it makes it pretty easy. Yes, so you can do that. And as soon as I find somebody who wants to give me $50,000, and that's all it'll take, one time only, chunk of money, we will actually have text messaging available. So we're working on trying to find a funding source for that. So if anybody knows of anybody has direct contact to Microsoft or something, let me know. We're going to show you an example of materials that we have. We have a program brochure. You saw the link to it on the front. It has the phone numbers. You can always do this by phone. You can always hit 0. There will always be an operator there who will work it through with you 24/7. You can always do it that way. Just faster to do it online. You can also do it there. You saw the brochure. You can get more. You can contact Jaime. We'll give you her contact information at the end also. You can write it down. We get thousands every year. I get like 60,000 brochures a year. So we'll be glad to send out any and all brochures. Again, the SAVIN brochures comes in 7 languages. The protective order brochure comes in 2 languages. We'll be glad to send those out to you. I'm going to show you what those tear sheets are in a minute too. Help petitioners register or pre-register for notification. So this is an important little piece that we're trying to make it work easier and better, and that work is in process. It just takes a little time. So as I mentioned to you, when an order is issued, it has a an indirect way to get into the Washington State Patrol database. My question always is why it can't go straight from the courts to the State Patrol database. I don't know why yet, but right now it goes from the courts to law enforcement into the database. If that takes, let's say, 2 days, there is no order in the system for the petitioner to be able to register. So it can hold what's called pre-registering. So if you're working with somebody right there at your desk and you say, here's your order, let's register right now so you'll get information when this order's been served, and you go in and try to enter the number, obviously it's not in the system and there's nothing to register against. There is a slightly convoluted way right now of being able to pre-register that information. We're trying to work that so everybody can just pre-register, and that will come. Right now, you can call the operator, which is again right here. It's on the brochure. I'm going to show you that number in another way. They're there 24/7. You can just say, I want to register my protective order. That operator will put it into the system. It will just be held in a pre-register mode until that order is entered. So it's just a way to shortcut it. There's another way to set up county by county, sort of, what do I want to call them, SAVIN PO advocates, that you could become the person that could do that pre-registration instead of the operator, but at this point in time it still has to be something separate from the petitioner. Here's the materials for you. This is a really big one. It's about the size of a Post-it note or a little bit bigger than a business card. Here's the protective order brochure. Again, we have this in English and Spanish. Here's its phone number. This is a different phone number than the custody status, obviously. Here's the web address, both web addresses. So we can send you these. There's obviously no cost for these programs for you or the user or anybody. These tear sheets are pretty cool. Actually, I went to a training, a conference for court clerks about this time last year, was talking about this program. They were pretty excited because it will really reduce the number of phone calls about has the order been served yet. But they thought that having another brochure was too much paper, too complicated, too much more for petitioners. So they asked that it be just some sort of little piece of paper that could just be stapled to that protective order. That's what this is. It's English on one side, Spanish on the back. It's small, could just be stapled, gives all the basic information right there. Okay, so this just to get just information about your county. There's a little bit of back office. There is no public information. The public matched pre-registrations. So that means somebody has called the operator, they have pre-registered their protective order, and it is still not matched. There are two primary reasons that this happens, and so I want to go over that. Number one is that law enforcement hasn't entered it yet, hasn't sent it in. That's the problem. If we were to start seeing that one particular county, King County is so big, what can I say? But if we were to see like Wahkiakum County, this is obviously basically the same thing. If we were to see them 5 times, we could call the county sheriff's office and say, hey, we're noticing that protective orders are not getting into the system. What seems to be the glitch with that? We can do that at our end. The more common is that the names don't match. So again, making sure that the names are entered exactly as they are on the order is key for this. Okay, so now we need your help. Obviously, as always, help us get the word out. Petitioners obviously need to know about this information and how to access it and what it can do for them. I think it could be more and more valuable in being able to say, yes, I know my order has been served. Advocate with the law enforcement in your community to reduce the time between the service and the entry into the database. And there's a variety of ways that that can be done. You just need to know how it's handled in your area. We did a training in Spokane just the other day, and luckily we had a law enforcement person in the room, and he just walked us through the whole process in his particular agency, but he also could hear from advocates, well, that's not as helpful as it could be. Can you look at another way? And as always, for everything, be involved during legislative session. to protect victim funding. All right, contact information, right? Whoops, sorry. Right there, you can still email me until actually the end of May, but all of my emails will go directly to Jaime because she'll have all that to take over, and there's her direct email information. Okay, kind of walk through that a little bit fast. I think I've got most of the information to you. Again, feel free to contact us. And also, oh, Jaime's coming.
I was actually just going to jump in and say if you want any of the materials to please give us an email. We're also happy to send out a copy of the PowerPoint that we used so you can have that information. Just go ahead and send me an email at jyoder@waspc.org.
And if you do want materials, don't forget to give us your address.
And do you want to take questions?
We'll be glad to take any and all questions that you have. Again, right here, I'm sure that other people probably have the same question you do, or again, you can email us directly.
So I would just offer, if anyone has a question, just go ahead and on your control panel, click the raise your hand button, and then we can try to unmute you, or type it into the your question box. So I'll just give everyone 30 seconds or so to see if you have any questions. I'm not seeing any hands raised or any questions coming in. So Dawn, sounds like you did a wonderful job of providing them with the info that they need. Oh, I'm sorry. Tina asked, is there a way to get a copy of the slides? Yes, there is. I can email that out to everyone after the webinar today.
And also one other thing for those of you that have contacts with your court clerks, that's one of the great ways to advocate also is to take at least the tear sheets, some brochures to the court clerk offices so they start giving them out with the protective orders. I know in King County at one point, I don't know if they've done it or not, but they were just going to put the information right on the bottom of their form, in fact. So look at ways that you can also expand how people get that information.
Yeah, thank you. That's such a great reminder because as we know, not everyone who applies for a protective order is going to be coming to an advocacy program for help. And so if there's other ways we can make sure people know about this resource that doesn't rely on them being involved with us, that's great. Because we want people to have it is a safety feature ultimately for folks to know when the respondent has been served so they can take whatever other steps they need to take to be mindful of their safety. Okay, yes, I will make sure those slides get out to you, and you have Dawn and Jaime's contact information, so do contact them and request brochures, and follow up with them if you have questions.
And my thanks again, everyone, for your participation, being involved, and being interested, and Meta and WSCADV, thank you for doing this for us. We
thank you both so much for being here today. I'm glad to finally get this information captured, and like I said, we've recorded the webinar, so we'll make that link available once we get it uploaded to our website. We can send that out, then you can share it with your coworkers or any new advocates or volunteers that come on board your program. So, okay, I'm getting some thank yous, and I think that's it. So I'm going to end the webinar now, and appreciate your time today. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.
Your evaluation slide is nice.
Oh, sure. And then Dawn is reminding me that that evaluation will pop up at the end, so please do fill it out, and remember to let us know if there were other people listening in at your desk. All right. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.